Hey everyone, this is John Feneck with the Feneck Commodities Report, and with me today is Ken MacLeod, who is CEO of Sonoro Gold, SMO in Canada, SMOFF in the States. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure talking to you again.
Likewise. So, just jumping right into it, I went through your website a bit and wanted to get some more feedback from you on the project. I noticed you had not only an MRE announced in 2023, but also a PEA, and there hasn't been a ton of news flow this year with the whole situation happening in Mexico. We have some things to discuss later about that. But why don't you start with, maybe an 8 to 10 minute overview of the project and why you're excited about it?
Absolutely. Thank you, John. So we started off the Cerro Caliche project in Sonora, Mexico in 2018 through the acquisition of five different sets of concessions. And the drilling program started in October of 2018. And since then, there's a grand total of 55,000 meters of drilling, of which 43,000 meters has been done by Sonoro. Prior enterprises had done some 12,000, 13,000 meters of drilling of both core holes and reverse circulation. And we have all that data that was 43101 compliant. So it gave us a really excellent head start into our own drilling program. So as a result of all the holes that we've drilled, and there's now a grand total of very close to 500 holes, there's been no duds on our part. So we were very successful in that regard, and we continue to be successful as we get to know the project more and more. So with the drilling that we've done, it enabled us to produce a PEA in October 2023. That was an updated PEA from a prior one a year beforehand. So with the drilling we've done to date, in October 2023, we produced a PEA which showed a net present value of $71 million, of which that's before tax, and $47 million after tax, and a 44% internal rate of return. Now, the rate of return is also expected to improve dramatically because that was based upon $1,800 gold, which was the base price. Now, on the downside, we have received the sensitivities down to $1,600 gold, and the project is still economically viable. But when you look at today's gold price of $2,400, there is a significant change in the net present value,
Sure.
and of course the IRR consequently. And that'll be worked out in the next edition of the PEA or pre-feasibility study, as the case may be. And so with that in mind now, we've been working over the past year or so while we're waiting for the PEA, for the MIA, the environmental impact statement, to be approved. We've been working on planning for the next stage of drilling and then the resource expansion. We've identified several zones within the drilled area and outside of the drilled area where we fully expect that we will be able to expand upon the size of the resource, quite possibly in certain areas improve the grade of the resource, and in other areas as well be able to cut down on the strip ratio of what is projected to be the existing pits or the pit shells that have been outlined in the PEA. So when all of that is added in, we believe that the focus for us will now be on demonstrating what we consider to be only 30% of the known mineralized zones in the property have been drilled and assayed to date. And our job is now to work on the remaining 70% of the known mineralization, but as far as the size is concerned, has to be drilled and assayed in order for us to quantify it properly. Now, the average grade is 0.46 grams throughout the project as it stands today. The additional drilling will theoretically enable us to take some of the existing areas that have limited drilling but have been incorporated into the pit shells and enable us then to remove or to tighten the drill spacing, which enables us then to be able to reduce the strip ratio, because once you take what is currently designated as sterile ground within the pit shell, convert that to productive ground, it reduces the strip ratios. That'll have a beneficial effect as well on the average grade and also on the economics of the project. But more importantly, right now, I feel that with gold at $2,400, it really throws the project into a totally new light. And if gold continues to be strong, many pundits expect it to get even stronger than this, the project can only get more and more valuable as time goes by.
Okay. So when you mentioned that the 2023 PEA was done at 1,800 gold?
It was these $1,800 gold was a base case scenario for the PEA in October of 2023. And sensitivity is down to $1,600 shows the project to be economically viable. And of course,
Okay.
at $2,400 gold, we've done our own internal calculations, but that'll remain confidential at the moment until we are able to produce the next edition of a PEA.
Sure. And when do you think that might be? Next year or?
I think it'll be next year. Right now, the focus will be on doing some additional drilling once financial conditions improve. And if we do another 5 or 10,000 meters of additional drilling, and we'll hopefully add to the size of the resource, and the grade will hopefully improve as well, then that can only enhance the economic value of the project and be a boost for the shareholders, and to also enable us to go out there and secure the project financing once we achieve the approval of the environmental impact statement with the Mexican authorities. And getting back to the environmental impact statement, we submitted the what is known as the MIA in May of 2022. And theoretically, by the end of May of 2022, we fully expected to be either having the MIA approved or be very, very close to approval. And since January of 2023, when we filed the last responses to SEMARNAT's questions regarding the filing of the environmental impact statement, they had theoretically 45 days to respond to us, and that has never happened. And that's simply because of political considerations. So as far as we're concerned, we have gone through all of the question and answers that SEMARNAT were able to provide us. And as such, we fully anticipate that, because we spent 2 years on the environmental impact statement, major, significant, in-depth socioeconomic and environmental research that was done in order to meet the requirements of the environmental impact statement. And I can assure you that the quality of the work that was done is equal to anything that we would have done in Canada, the United States, or anywhere around the world. So I fully expect that we should be able to get the MIA approval once the Mexican government has sorted itself out with its new cabinet members, new responsibilities for the likes of the Ministry of the Economy, the Ministry of the Environment, SEMARNAT, the environmental agency. We believe that, that we're now entering into a spirit of greater cooperation with the Mexican government after having gone through a bit of turmoil over the past few years. And so we're expecting that after President-elect Sheinbaum is able to take over as president on October the 1st, after the successful election on June the 2nd, we believe that we will be able to enter into dialogue with the Mexican government and be able to achieve the consensus to enable us to get the approval on the environmental impact statement.
Okay. So that might be early next year, not this year.
That's something I don't really like to speculate on as to the exact timing. I've been wrong before. And so, but at this point in time, I think it's safe to assume that the efforts that President-elect Sheinbaum are putting towards placating and making sure that foreign investors feel safe and comfortable in Mexico, these efforts are starting to take root. And we notice that there's more dialogue with the Canadian government. And of course, the Canadian government has a lot of interests at stake with the mining companies in Mexico. But 70% of the miners are Canadian, of course. So we believe that the spirit of cooperation is starting to be germinate in the Mexican government. And I think it'll take seed once the president-elect becomes the actual president on October the 1st. And whether we were able to get approval on the environmental impact statements in the last quarter of this year, time will tell, but it's possible. But like you said, it may be in early next year before that happens. But nevertheless, we're heading in the right direction. I don't think the train is about to leave the station, and it's unstoppable because Mexico has been mining for the past 500 years. And such a great percentage of the economy of Mexico is based upon the mining industry. And I don't think any future president will jeopardize that.
That's a great point you make. I think as value managers, we look at situations like Peru, where Castillo was in charge. Obviously, he's been jailed and has been out of the way now for 18 months, and those stocks have started to respond a bit in Peru now. But it just takes some time, right? And I think with Mexico, it's just even that much more of a prolific area for mining, as you just pointed out. And so this is a buying opportunity to us in stocks like yours and other stocks in the region where, it's just a matter of time, right? It's not like if this is going to happen, it's when it's going to happen to us.
I agree. It's a question of when is it going to happen. I am 100% confident. We've been talking to other companies in Mexico, major mining companies that are looking at it long term. We believe that, in their opinion, the issue is not when Mexico will fully reopen its mining sector and the open pit mining sector. It's a question of when, and they'll be able to acquire projects, sit on them if necessary for a while, but then develop them in due course. Now, we feel very confident that one of our greatest proponents, one of our greatest supporters, of course, is the government in Sonora State. Very pro-mining. 25% of the GDP of Sonora State is reliant on the mining sector, and the government is very keen on protecting that mining sector. And as you know, in Mexico, 70% of the mines are open pit mines. So if you try to ban an future open pit mines, you are condemning a good percentage of your economy to a slow, excruciating death. And these areas that mines operate in are typically away from city centers, typically in remote areas where the poorest of people live, and bringing jobs into these depressed and remote areas is a necessity for Mexico to enable the wealth of the country to be spread in a more even manner. Mining companies do provide that. We provide well-paying jobs. We provide education. We provide the support for medical facilities, infrastructure, and as such, as good corporate citizens, we are part of the future success of the Mexican economy.
Totally agree. On the homepage, I just didn't want to misquote it, so I wrote it down. Of your website, it says building Mexico's next gold mine. So obviously you guys have the intention to build, unlike some juniors where they don't have the capacity to build a project. Can you walk us through like what your timeline is in terms of getting to production?
Of course. The main reason for us to say we are Mexico's next gold mine is we're waiting for that final approval. Once that final approval comes, it'll kick in the project finance, which is modest, and B, we have the technical team that enable us to put the mine into production. Our technical team under our operations manager and vice chairman, Jorge Diaz, has been in the process of building mines in Mexico for the past 40 years, in fact, 45 years. Started off with Peñoles. He's been involved in the Mulatos mine. He's been involved in La Colorada and many of the other mines, and especially the open pit mines in northern Mexico. He built his own private open pit mine 6 years ago and is still operating to this day and in fact expanding. So we have a technical team under Jorge Diaz that enables us then to grab the reins of construction, bring in the contractors to help us build the mine and operate it ourselves, bring in, of course, other operators as well. So that is the reason why we are intent on putting this into production, because we have the expertise. We've done it before successfully, and we believe we'll continue to be successful with Cerro Caliche.
Excellent. Well, I would encourage listeners to take a look at your website and look at the presentation deck there to get a better understanding of Mr. Diaz's background. But those are some very impressive, you know, past projects that he's worked on for sure. So just not giving, not trying to box you into a corner with an exact date here, because obviously we know that things are slow moving in Mexico right now. But what's the worst case scenario for like a production, you know, timing for you? Is it next year? Is it 2026? Can you give us some color around that?
It's a very good question because how long would it take for us to build the mine once we achieve the environmental approval from the government? The answer is 12 months maximum. And
Okay.
I'm comparing this to what Jorge Diaz and his teams have done in prior mining operations. And there was another very, very prominent mine that when the time they got the approval on the environmental impact statement until they poured the first doré bar was 5 months. Now, I'm not suggesting we are going to be that fast. Conditions were absolutely perfect for that mine to be built in 5 months. Now, hopefully we'll be less than 12 months, but the worst case scenario, in our opinion, is 12 months for us to pour that first doré bar. Now, let's assume that I don't expect anything to happen until the fourth quarter of this year. If it happens then by the end of 2025, we should be in production. We should be pouring that first doré bar. That would be the absolutely perfect case for us to entertain at this point in time. But if worst case scenario is if decisions are delayed on the environmental side until early next year, then so be it. We can certainly live with that, but it just delays the process a little bit.
Understood. Okay. Any other closing thoughts that you wanted to add that investors should know about?
Well, yeah, I think the simple look at our share trading price is one that really one should look at very, very closely. We have been in the past little while, I would say the past 6 months or so, we've been trading at around the 5-cent level. And this really is a result of the lack of approval for the environmental impact statement. We had expected it before, we were anticipating it, and it simply didn't pan out the way we had expected. Now, in the past few months as well, we've also been able to look at the value of the project per se. And if you look at the net present value, as we mentioned earlier, after tax of $47 million, then that's in US dollars as well. So you're at around $75 million Canadian. We have a market capitalization of $9 million. So at some point in time, I would imagine, I would fully expect that when this market turns, whether it's our independent market for Sonoro or whether it's the general market for junior companies, then either way, or both of them simultaneously, then I would say we're going to start to see a recognition of the value of the project reflected in the value of the stock. So I'm very bullish in that regard. And so the other thing was that we've been maintaining, of course, is financings at 5 cents are very dilutive. So we've tried to avoid over dilution of the shareholders, over dilution of the stock. Been successful as well. So what we as insiders have been doing is when it comes time for property payments, and some of these property payments were, $400,000 US, $150,000, $50,000 US, we as insiders have contributed to paying off these property payments so as to avoid having to go to the market to raise the money. And as such, eventually, when the time comes, we would be quite willing, if the market is suitably priced, we would be willing to convert that into shares at some point in the future. And so we have no intentions of letting the property payments lapse. And we only have really a couple of property payments remaining now, which once again, we're committed to covering in the event that the marketplace is not strong enough at the time the payments are being made. But the payments are due in November of this year and in April of next year. So we have time on our hands right now. We should by November of this year have a clear indication from the Mexican government of their intention towards the mining sector in general and open pits specifically. And so we believe that we should be able to raise the financing in the marketplace at hopefully a more robust level than what we're at today.
Understood. So you just said, just for clarification, November of this year, you probably will hear from the Mexican government regarding the status of open pit mining.
Oh, I think we'll hear it earlier. The
Okay.
indications I'm getting right now are that the feedback I'm getting is that open pit mining is no longer public enemy number one, so to speak. So I'm starting to hear words of collaboration regarding the mining companies and the government, and I think we'll hear very, very shortly. Maybe not before October the 1st, but shortly after October the 1st, I would imagine that President Sheinbaum at that point will then illustrate to the marketplace in general her views towards the mining industry and open pit mining specifically.
Okay. Yeah, and that's in closing why we've started to look at the stock more closely is that the time horizon here for waiting from July until October is nothing, in the scheme of things. And so we're encouraging people to look at a lot of different Mexican projects, yours included, that have merit and that are close to production with gold and silver prices starting to, obviously tick up here.
I agree. And between now and October, I think the clarity will be the order of the day. I think that we will see it. Maybe not 100% clarity by then, but shortly after that, we should be able to get full clarity.
That's good. Well, thanks a lot, Ken, for coming on. We appreciate that. And, I think we'll have you back on after October 1st so we can talk more about it openly.
I look forward to that, John. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot, Ken.